Welcome to WordCamp Santa Clarita 2021. My name is Mike Pilley, and I'm the Bakersfield, California WordPress meetup organizer and the MC for today's session. This is the 3 p.m. talk with Daisy Olsen at the Revolution track. Please feel free to add any questions to the YouTube chat feed, and we'll answer those at the end. And now I'd like to introduce this session's speaker, Daisy Olsen. Daisy has worked in and around the WordPress community since 2007. She has spoken at WordCamps around the world and helped to organize the first WordCamp Boston in 2010. Currently, Daisy works for Automattic as a developer advocate with a special focus on helping WordPress extenders do more with the block editor. In her spare time, you'll often find Daisy listening to audiobooks while knitting. She loves to travel with her family and has often spent many weeks throughout the year visiting different places. This session is titled Rapid Landing Page Creation with the WordPress Block Editor.
Thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Daisy Olsen. I am a developer advocate with Automattic, and it is my great pleasure to have the opportunity to spend a lot of time working with people that use WordPress for their lives, for their businesses, for their personal websites, particularly those that like to build out their websites with code. So today we are going to talk about creating a landing page. And the idea will be to demonstrate and showcase some of what can be done even without very much code as we move into the idea behind full site editing. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. A quick rundown of what we're going to do today. My introduction, obviously, is this. We're going to also introduce the idea of a new file that is being introduced for WordPress 5.8 called theme.json. It's a very cool thing to simplify expanding what you have available in the block editor. And we'll take a look at just a small piece of what that looks like for the purposes of creating a landing page today. And then we'll go ahead and go right into the actual build of the landing page. And what we'll do is try to implement a few new features that are also coming along with WordPress 5.8 that'll be to make this experience a little bit better. And then at towards the end, we will talk about some ways to use block patterns and reusable blocks to make future landing pages a little easier to create. So let's go ahead and move on. All right, so let's talk about theme.json. So the theme JSON file is a configuration file, and it will do a lot of things, but for the purposes of what we're doing today, um, there are three things that we're going to do. We are going to register a color palette. We are going to set the overall widths of our site, a regular content width and a wide width, and these are used by the blocks. And then we are going to activate the template editing mode that comes with WordPress 5.8. And there are a few different ways to activate it. One of them is just by having one of these theme.json files in the root of your active theme. It automatically enables this new feature. So what does a theme.json file look like? So here we have a very simple theme.json file. It might look a little scary, but trust me, it's not as bad as it seems. And a lot of it is just a matter of taking an existing file and then modifying it to suit your needs. So in this case, we have the JSON format is a series of key value pairs. So we have a key, a version, and a value of 1. That will let you define certain things. So the version is the version of theme.json. So it's 1. It's the very first one. So not much to worry about there. And then we're going to go into the settings. And there are some other options available, but we're only going to concern ourselves with just these few for right now. One is color. We're going to have color settings and we're going to define a palette. It's also possible to set gradient presets and duotone presets in this area, but we're only going to add some simple colors. In this case, we're going to add black, white, blue, red, tan, light blue, and gray. And most of these colors, with the exception of black, white, and gray, were provided as part of a design spec, basically. It's a just we'll take a look at what I was provided for this very simple landing page, and that's where the color palette is coming from. So we give it a human readable name. So for this example here, we have light blue. We give it a computer readable name, which is still light blue, but all lowercase and a dash instead of a space. And then we put the hexadecimal code in it. And so everything is comma separated and surrounded with brackets, and there is a very structured format to this. If you're interested in learning more about how to create this file, there are some docs available in the developer handbook, so that would be a great place to look if you're looking for more information about this. And then the last section that we're going to add is the layout. So we're going to give our content size 800 pixels and our wide size 1000 pixels. It's just to give some parameters around how wide WordPress should make the blocks. If they're regular width, then they'll be 800 pixels wide. And if they're wide size width, then they'll be 1000 pixels wide. And of course, if they're full width, then they will be the full width of the viewport. All right, so this file is already in place on my site. So let's jump over there and start building a landing page. All right, so the landing page build with the template editor and actually a couple or at least one new theme block that is being added with 5.8. This is a brand new site. There's not really a whole lot on it except some other content that I had created as I prepared for this presentation. And then on the left here is our mock-up. So this is just an image that was provided, and this is the landing page that we're going to create. It may look a little small on your screen, but we'll turn it from this little thumbnail size into a full page as we go along. So we have a hero image, we have a call to action block, we have 4 columns with some call out information, and then we have this content down below. So, and then I was also given this Google Doc that has the copy already ready to paste and our hexadecimal codes for the color palette. And then we have our images that were provided that we'll use. And I have these all ready to go, so we can go ahead and get started building. So I'm going to create a new page. The site is using the 2021 theme. Don't let the mint green alarm you. We are going to make this page not have that. The site will still have it, but this page will not. So I am going to start by taking the title from our Google Doc. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it right into the title for the page. We will not be displaying this title. We're going to do it a different way. So if we go back over to our landing page, it will help speed things along if we look at our structure here and then start to replicate the structure first. So what we have is basically 4 sections. We have our hero image, we have our call to action, we have our columns, and then we have our content. So what we're going to do is first, we're going to create this image block. So I'm going to go ahead and add an image. And this image should already be in my media library. So I'm going to go over here, add it, and select it. And I already know that I want this to be the wide width. So I'm going to go ahead and set the wide width to this block. You can see that it does that. And now the next section down, I would like to have a group block to contain all of this content and so that I can give it a background color. So I'm going to select a group from the options. I'm going to set it to the wide width so that it matches the width of that image. And I'm going to change the background color to be that dark blue and the text color to be white. All right, and now what I want to do is add the page title in. So I'm going to add a block and I'm going to search for title. And you'll see this new block that's called post title. And when I add that in, it adds the post title in with an H2, which would be normally what you'd want for some things, but in this case, we actually want it to be an H1. We want it to be an H1, but we don't want it to be quite so large. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce the font size down to, I think, extra large. I'm going to center the text. It doesn't look like it's centered, but it did actually. And you'll see that when we move over to the front end. And then I'm going to go back to my content that I was provided. And this is the portion that's going to go in here. So I'm going to copy from here. And I'm going to just go ahead and start a new paragraph block so I have a place to paste. And I'll paste that in. So now we have our copy. So let's just do a couple of little formatting things here. I'm going to center the text for the 2 paragraphs, and I'm going to make that little tagline at the end smaller. And then now I'm going to actually do a transform because this apply now text should actually be a button. So right now it's a paragraph, and if I click on the paragraph icon, which is the block icon, I can select from any of these blocks to transform it to. And what I want to transform it to is a button. So I'm going to select buttons. And I want to align it to justify the items to the center. So I'll do that. It doesn't look like it did anything, but as soon as I click out of there, you'll see that it's actually is done. So now this is a good opportunity to introduce the list view, and you can see here that we can see all of the blocks that are in use on this page. And it makes it very easy to select a new block. This is also new in WordPress 5.8. It's a great improvement over the list view that is available currently. So what I want to do with this button, if I go back over to my mockup again, is I can see that this button should be red with white text. So with the button selected, I am going to change the background color to red and the text color to white. There is not an option right now to set the border radius, so I'm going to leave that for later. And that is this section. It looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and save my draft now, and let's go ahead and look at what this looks like on the front. All right, so here we have this landing page, and right now it's not quite matching up with what our expectations are for a landing page because we do have all of this extra information at the top. We've got a lot of green and we've got some space in here, but we're going to go ahead and continue on, and you'll see that we'll end up getting rid of that as we go. All right, so we are going to move on down the page, and the next section is these columns. So what I want to do now is add a columns block. When I add a columns block, I can go ahead and add the columns, and then I can set the number of columns. So I chose 1 only because there isn't a 4 option. So if I go out to the columns level, I can move this. I can change it to have more columns, but to speed things along just a little bit, what I'm going to do is start configuring it the way that it is by setting up my first column. And the reason I'm doing that is because if I have some of my information in here already, it'll just make it a little bit faster for the subsequent ones. So with my column selected, I want to add about 10 pixels of padding around it so that it gives a little bit of space. My overall width of I'm going to go back to the columns now. I'm going to set the width to wide width, and I'm going to change the color to tan. And now when I go to my column, my single column, I will actually change that color to have a background of white. So now when I duplicate this column, they'll all have that same information. So now what I'm going to do is duplicate this column 3 times. 2 and 3. So obviously we don't want to have that same image in each case. So what I'll do is I'll replace the ones that need to be replaced. We'll do a clock here. We'll do a, let's see, we'll do a van here. And we will replace this one and set it to the plant. All right, so now we have our 4 columns and we just need to add the content. So we can actually take this content from over here. Let me just make this a little smaller so that I can see it all. I'm going to take the full benefits content and I will copy. And then I'm going to click in here and add a paragraph block and then just paste this in. Paste. And there we have it. So if I just do that for the other 3 rather, we'll do a copy. Oops. Paste. And copy. Add a paragraph. Oops. It likes to jump around on me. And paste. And then we just do the last one. Copy. And paste. All right, so let's go back to our mock-up again and see how we're looking. Oops. All right. So it looks like we need to make these headings a little smaller. So I'm going to bold them, but then make the font size normal. So we'll do that for all 4. Now these are all still headings. We're just changing the styling on them. That. And then the paragraph text is also a little too big. So let's try going down to extra small. And we'll repeat that across. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and save my draft. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the page again and see how we're looking so far. Okay, so we've got our first 3 sections, so we just have 1 more to go. So this time I want a group around all of this remaining content. And so I'm going to add another group. I'll make it wide width. And then I'm going to go grab all the rest of that content. And just paste it right in. Copy this. We will add a paragraph block just so we have a place to paste. And we're going to paste. And there we have it. All right, so now with this, I think we are actually finished with this piece. So let's go ahead and get that out of there so we have a little more wiggle room here. And I want to select this outer group, and I want to give it, which I've already set to the wide width, but I want to give it a background color of this light blue color. And what that'll do is give it that width. And I also want to make the overall content width of this section to be a little narrower. So I don't really want it to be the full 800 pixels. So instead, I'm going to set this just for this one block. I'm going to set it to be 500 pixels. All right, so that's what that's going to look like. And now we'll go ahead and save the draft again, and let's refresh this front. And there we have that. So I see a couple more things that I want to adjust. Mainly just the size of these headings is a little too big. So we're going to go down to extra large instead and let that stand. And then the other thing is that I think that the text is not going to stand out real well once I do this. So I want to change the line height to be a little taller. And the reason I'm doing this rather than to set some padding is I'm just trying to do as much as I can without touching any CSS. Should anyone be curious to know the reasoning. And now I need to convert this apply now to a button like I did before. I'm going to set the justification to center. And then I'm going to select my button and change the color to red background and white text. And in this case, I actually don't want this to be centered because it wasn't in the mockup. So let's go ahead and change that back to left justified. Okay. And then I want to give this a little more space in here. So I'm going to add a spacer block in between this list and the button. And I'm going to set that to be 30 pixels. And then the last thing that I'll do is I'm going to change this application deadline to the extra small size. And I'm going to save my draft one more time and refresh this. And there is the majority of our landing page. So the next piece is going to be to get rid of all of this extra content and get the background to be a different color. So from my page, I'm going to go to the page settings, and I'm going to go to template, which is a new feature. This would not have been quite like this before. There would have been potentially an option under page attributes to choose a page template. So now when you want to create a new template right from within the block editor, you can just click on new. I'm going to give this a name called landing page, and I will create that. And everything looks a little bit different now. So I wouldn't, it's not a concern once you're kind of accustomed to what to expect. But what I want to do is start to get rid of some of this information. So before I didn't have access to these header blocks. So, but I do now. So what I want to do is get rid of this group. So you can see that the box went around it. And I can select to remove block. I would like to select this separator and remove that. And then I actually want to take this group that has the post title in it out because I already have the post title down here further. So I don't need it to be part of the template itself. And I'm going to remove that block. Okay. And then I scroll down and that's all there is. There's no footer included in the template editor at this time. So when I do that, I'm all good. Now this group here is the entire template. And what I want to do now is change the color, the background color of this template to be this dark gray color. And when I publish this, it's going to ask me if I want to publish the page and the template. I only want to publish the landing page template. I don't want to publish the page itself. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then I'm going to click on this back button to go back to the page editor. So, and here we are, and it doesn't look like I've done anything here, but when I go to the front end now and refresh this, you can see that a whole bunch of stuff has changed. So we've lost our header, we've lost our footer, all we have are our blocks and our background. So we are so much closer now. And so there are just a few things that aren't possible from the block editor that I'm going to just add a little bit of custom CSS for. And here we have the customizer. So I'm going to go into additional CSS here, and I have some CSS already prepared for this. Then it looks a little bit long, but there's only 4 rules here. One is that this theme is adding a top and bottom margin to a lot of blocks that I don't want in this case, but I only want it to apply to this landing page template. So what I've done here is I've created a rule that will only target this class for this particular landing page. So if I've done my work right, then when I uncomment this, you can see that everything pulls together and collapses down. And then the next thing is that since there isn't a way to apply a border radius to that button right now, I can actually do that with CSS here. And so when I uncomment that, then my button becomes border radius. And then the other thing that needs to be adjusted here is the bullet points in the mockup were carrots or like arrows. And that isn't an option right out of the box for CSS, but I have written a little CSS to change the list style type to be this character. So I can do that. And then it's a little too far indented, so I've just changed the padding here. And then that pulls it out a little bit closer to the way it was in the mockup. So once I publish this, I can clear out of here. And now the only thing that I might want to do from here is just to close up the spacing at the top and the bottom, but it's pretty minimal. And I feel like I've got a pretty good landing page created based on that original mockup. All right, so let's talk about further things that you could do. So if you had a section of a landing page that you use again and again and again, and it's always the same, and if anything ever needed to change with it, you would have to actually go out and edit every landing page you had. And in some cases, that could be like hundreds of pages, depending on your business. I have actually seen sites that do have hundreds of landing pages that are used for different purposes, for different promotions, for different ad um, advertising efforts. So it actually does happen. So if you have something like that, so for example, in the example we had the call to action section at the top. If that was always going to be the same, you could actually save it as a reusable block and then use it multiple times. And if you ever did need to edit it, you would do it from a central location. If you ever needed to edit it, you would do it from a central location. So reusable blocks is a block or multiple blocks that are saved to allow management from a central location. So changes made to a reusable block will apply to every instance of the reusable block across an entire website. So you can actually convert blocks from your content to be reusable blocks. It's pretty handy. There are workshops on it at learn.wordpress.org if you're interested in learning more about that. And then another option that you can use to speed up your landing page creation would be to register block patterns. A block pattern, unlike a reusable block, is more of a starting point for your blocks. It's more like a template where you can have some of your settings already configured and which blocks should be added, and then you're free to make modifications to them from there. So for example, the 4 column section of our landing page could have been a block pattern that already had 4 columns. It had the tan background, it had the wide width, it had the placeholders for 4 images, placeholders for 4 headings, placeholders for 4 paragraphs. And then you'd be able to actually use that to start off that section of your landing page. It might not always be the same for each one, but maybe you always or you frequently use that 4 column layout. A block pattern would be a really excellent way to do that. There will be in the near future a block pattern directory that people have contributed to create these beautiful designs using blocks that can be copied into your own site. And then at some point in the future, it may be possible to actually submit your own block patterns into that directory. So it's a pretty great thing. And then there's also a block patterns registration workshop at the same learn.wordpress.org website. These workshops are free, and I definitely encourage you to go check them out. So thanks for joining me today, and I hope you will stay in touch. My contact information is up on the screen. Please feel free to reach out to me at any of these through any of these channels, and let me know what you thought of this content and if you have any questions. So I hope that the rest of the WordCamp Santa Clarita event is excellent, and I hope to speak with some of you soon. Thanks.
Hi, Daisy.
Cool.
What a great presentation.
Thank you so much. It was fun to put together. So it was really cool to get a chance to really build something.
I have to admit, this hybrid format, it does allow more of the, including the live demo stuff, which is, sometimes when we're doing the live stuff is a little risky, right?
Mm. Well, I've done it both ways.
Uh,
I really love doing live demos though. And the truth is that I recorded all that in one take, even though I edited a few little pauses out, but it was basically live.
most
So
excellent, most excellent. So it looks like we have a few questions if you're ready.
sure.
So the first one, is there a limit to how many colors are in the palette, or is it a preset number?
As far as I know, there is no set limit. I would say that there's a point where it becomes a little overwhelming. So if you had like 100 colors at that point, it would probably be not a time saver. They all can be named. And when you register, there are a couple of points about this. One is that there is a default palette that should load if there isn't a registered palette that just has some really basic colors. Your theme might already register a palette, and if you do register a palette, it replaces the default palette. That said, if you had colors that you wanted to specify for specific blocks in the block editor, it is possible to have like your general palette at the top level, and then for specific blocks, replace that palette with some other palette. So that would be the way that I would say if you really had a lot of colors you were going to be working with, to narrow them down to the ones that applied to specific blocks and set them up in that way in your theme JSON file. And but yeah, the ability to create that palette is actually not new. It's just now it's so much easier in a theme JSON file.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Now that things are really starting to click here. The next question was, does the new template create a file somewhere, or is it saved in the database? And I have to admit, I was curious about this as well.
Yeah, so at this point, the way that it's being implemented into WordPress 5.8, it is saved in the database. It is actually a post type. So your template gets saved in this a way similar to a post or a page, but it isn't something that you would use as a standalone post or page. It is only is in combination with other content on your site. But at the database level, it's being saved as a post type. In the future, it'll be possible to create templates in your theme, and they would be files that you create.
Oh, wow. Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, this is really neat. This is, I know both Scott and I were exchanging how excited we are to see, these new improvements and everything.
Yeah, it's
Um,
really cool.
doesn't look like we may have any other questions. Scott had made a comment that, good day, good full day of information, and that we feel more prepared about 5.8 and continuing development with these existing sites and new ones. Absolutely. There was another comment as well, just as many thanks to Daisy for supporting communities as we near 5.8 on the way to 5.9. So yeah, likewise, I think we all replicate those sentiments.
Yeah, and I realized as I was watching through that video again with everyone that I didn't really say much about what I had going on that site. It was vanilla. It was WordPress 5.8 RC1, which was the RC at the time I recorded the video, and there were no plugins. It was just WordPress. So everything that I did there was just using the default theme and plain old WordPress.
That is so cool. That is really neat. Let's see. So it doesn't look like I don't see anything or any other questions that are coming through for right now. So I think maybe that might end our Q&A for now.
Sounds great.
Thanks so much, Daisy. I appreciate it. And everyone, after this, we're going to have at 4 p.m. Sumner Davenport will be giving us some day one closing remarks. So make sure that you hit that track so that we can finish up for our afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.